Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, this is Mark, and before we start this episode, I wanted to let you in on a little secret and then ask you a question. A very big milestone is rapidly approaching here at EntreArchitect Podcast. Episode 100. It's only a few weeks away. I cannot believe it. 100 episodes, and I want to make that episode a very special one. I want to make that episode 100, the best one yet. So here's my idea. On episode 100, I want to feature the best guest yet. I want to feature you, the EntreArchitect community. So here is your mission, should you choose to accept it. Click on your voice memo app. On the iPhone, you'll find that voice memo app in the utilities group along with your calculator and your compass. And I'm not sure where you'll find it on your Android, but I know that Android has a voice memo app as well. So click on to that voice memo app. Hold the phone up to your mouth like you're speaking on the telephone in order to ensure a clean, crisp recording, and record your answer to this question. What is the one thing that you did this year to improve your business, your leadership, or your life? Share what you know. I want you to share what you know. Share one tip, one technique, a system, or a suggestion that made your world a little bit better this year. So record your answer to that question. What is the one thing that you did this year to improve your business, your leadership, or your life? And email the audio file. It's very easy. Trust me. Just go to the voice memo app, and it's super easy. Email that audio file to me at support@EntreArchitect.com. And if you take just a few minutes to do this right now, before listening to this episode 100 will be the best episode yet. I can't wait to hear your voice on the EntreArchitect Podcast. This is the EntreArchitect Podcast, episode 94. Welcome back to the EntreArchitect Podcast. My name is Mark R. LePage, and this is the podcast dedicated to a successful life as a small firm architect. Whether you have plans to someday start your own firm, whether you're in the process of launching a startup, or you might be an experienced small firm architect just trying to make a difference, this podcast is for you. My goal is to inspire you to build a better business so that you may pursue your purpose with passion and live the life of your dreams. We are living at an amazing time. We are living at a time when massive, paradigm-shifting technologies are being introduced to us every day. Change is happening so rapidly. New technologies are going to change the way we practice and how we run our businesses and how we live our lives. Reach into your pocket and pull out that iPhone, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Do you remember what it was like before we had the knowledge of the entire world in our pocket? These changes and developments in technology will provide new opportunities to the profession as a whole and to us as individual independent architects. This week on the EntreArchitect Podcast, I welcome back a former guest and a friend of the show, George Valdes, to discuss the consequences of technology on the profession of architecture. This episode of the EntreArchitect Podcast is sponsored by ArchiSnapper, a great way to create and manage field reports. Learn more at entrearchitect.com/ArchiSnapper. And FreshBooks, the easiest way to send invoices, manage expenses, and track your time. Learn more at freshbooks.com/architect. George Valdes, welcome back to the Entrepreneur Architect Podcast. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, great to be back, Mark.
You joined us before, back on episode 86. So if anybody's interested in sort of checking that out, let me just give you a quick reintroduction to George. George is currently based in New York City, and he is the vice president of product at Iris VR. That is a company that's dedicated to sort of bringing virtual reality to reality in the architecture, and engineering, and construction industries. He's also the co-founder of Built-In, the architecture and entrepreneurship meeting. It's the largest meetup in New York City devoted to fostering entrepreneurship within these industries. Again, you can check out George's full story back at episode 86. That's entrearchitect.com/episode 86. And last time we talked about virtual reality and how that specific technology is going to impact and is impacting the profession. So before we get into our conversation today, I'd love, George, for you to sort of bring us up to speed. You were fresh and new at Iris when we spoke last. That was a few months ago. And so I'd love to sort of know how things are going there and any of your current thoughts or developments since we last spoke.
Yeah, that'd be great. So I'm now kind of getting into the swing of things. Over the past 2 months, it's been really interesting demoing the product to various large offices and going to different events and seeing how people are reacting to the product, and also getting feedback from our existing user base. What's been very interesting from looking at the data is that more and more firms are starting to have these Oculus Rifts in-house, and more than one.
Just go back and describe what an Oculus Rift is.
So an Oculus Rift is a device that was the first version of it was invented by, I think, a then 16 or 17-year-old Lucky Palmer. He came up with this hardware device that basically helped to solve a problem in VR, which had to do with nausea. So basically, the device was at a point where it could, and mobile phones were at a point where you can actually experience, VR experiences without much lag. And that kind of innovation led to it being bought by Facebook, I think in the 1 billion range, just about a couple of years ago, maybe two or 3 years ago. So the device itself is it's in a second stage. It's called the DK2, the development kit 2, also known, I think, as Crescent Bay. But the new version, which should be released in the first quarter of next year, is going to have a lot more improvements. And they've announced that the price range is going to be above, probably around the $400 range, or above $350 for sure. But anyway, the device itself is really interesting because it leverages a lot of different technologies to really give you immersion. I mean, and that's the kind of word that's being used a lot, is the immersive quality of it is really impactful. And so at Iris, we've leveraged that device along with other ones to give architects a way to get into their buildings in the pre-design. Even all the way up to, we're seeing it being used all the way up to CA, where people are validating that what's in the model is in what's actually being built. So it's really, really fascinating. The feedback that we keep getting is that this is not just a marketing tool, right? I mean, there's a lot of larger firms that have been exploring VR, and they've been leveraging its capability as a way to sell to a client, or as a byproduct for the client that they can then sell to a potential buyer of a space or something like that. But what we realized, what everyone's kind of coming to a conclusion, is that there's going to be a new design tool that you can leverage on a day-to-day to be able to model something, jump into the space, understand its the impact or the affects or effects that you've designed, and then make edits. Probably one of the most powerful kind of data points is that we're starting to get owners, large companies that within pharma and other types of industries like that, where they have their own internal construction teams, and they keep one interesting phone call I had. I mean, the term lean construction was brought up very frequently, and the notion is that this company builds a lot of facilities, and they want to bring user groups in early on to make sure that what they build, everyone has an understanding of what's going to get built. So the idea would be that once it gets built, they have to spend less time and money retrofitting their interior spaces because the buy-in happened very early on. And so this notion of lean construction is very well suited for the kind of things that VR can afford.
So you're only building what's absolutely necessary, and not building a super flexible space, but building a space that's customized for that specific client.
Yeah, and just I think the point is to get feedback early on in the process, so that there's less waste downstream. And by bringing in user groups, it's actually not unlike what happens in software development, where you have people like us, have a kind of we have testers out there that are actually giving us feedback that we can then reiterate early on, and so that we build something that's closer to what people expect should be built, or then that can work with their current workflows, rather than us being or in this case a product for months and months and months, and then putting it out there and then nobody likes it, right? And we've wasted so much time and effort and development resources on something that didn't meet the needs of the end user. So I think lean construction is very much the same. And for those listeners out there that have read even like the Lean Startup, a lot of the same type of concepts apply. So I think it's basically the development of where things are going is that you want to start eliminating waste from the entire process of construction, because it is probably one of the most wasteful industries that exists.
So, I mean, virtual reality itself from what you're describing is disrupting everything. It's disrupting the design process. It's disrupting in a good way the construction process, in the sales process, in the marketing process. Everything is shifting because you can actually see and literally experience the space and the architecture before it's built.
Yeah, and we're even getting people are really starting to project into this interesting new ways of VR. So, for instance, training. If you design retail spaces, a service that you might be able to provide for your end customer is that you can then help train their employees on before the space is built, using VR, and things of that nature, where you can start to collect data from these users that end up using it provisionally, so they can maybe do heat maps about where people are kind of walking or navigating through into different spaces. It's just opening up a whole different way of thinking about space that we're just starting to kind of understand.
When I invited you back here, I was hoping that we could sort of broaden the conversation beyond virtual reality and talk about other technologies, because in that last conversation that we had, we started doing that. We started talking about some of the disruption and the consequences of technology on the profession and how those things are going to change. I mean, we're living in a time of massive paradigm shifting technology. I mean, when you look at virtual reality and the potential that has, it's going to change potentially everything that we're doing. And there's technology as it progresses. I mean, if you look at the technology that's already been brought to us and how much that's changed from drafting boards to CAD to BIM and beyond, it's changing the way we practice. It's changing the way we run our businesses. It's changing the way we live. And so I see these as some people sort of push back on them because they're change and they don't want to change. They like the way to do things the way they've always done them because there's a fear. You have to learn these new ways of doing things. But I also see that there's a tremendous opportunity here for the profession that beyond the traditional model of architecture, these opportunities, if we are willing to grasp them and take ownership of them, they could be the realm of the architect. And so, what is your thought on that? I mean, that idea.
Yeah, I think for every kind of innovation that's happening, there's probably an insane amount of opportunity associated with that from a business model perspective.
Let's take a quick break here to say thank you to ArchiSnapper and FreshBooks for their support as platform sponsors of EntreArchitect. Because as platform sponsors, these companies have provided funding and support for our overall mission to become an influential force in the profession of architecture. They recognize the need for small firms to build better businesses in order to be better architects, and I want to say thank you. ArchiSnapper is a simple tool for creating and managing field reports. With ArchiSnapper, architects draft field reports on site using their phone or tablet. ArchiSnapper is easy to use and it saves a lot of time. I put ArchiSnapper to the test myself, and I love it. Once I set it up and I understood all the features and how it works, it's become a part of my regular workflow at project meetings. I take notes, I shoot photos, I sketch my thoughts right on top of the photos, and it's all automatically uploaded to the cloud. Once I get back to the studio, I log in at my desktop, click a button, and my field report is ready to go. ArchiSnapper. Grow your business instead of struggling with field reports. If you want to learn more about ArchiSnapper and get a free 30-day trial, visit EntreArchitect.com/ArchiSnapper. And FreshBooks. You've heard me over and over again say profit, then art. The systems are what make a difference in a well-functioning, profitable firm. Mastering some of the less creative tasks, like staying on top of our invoices and tracking our time, is a really crucial part of running our firms. And this is where FreshBooks, our friends and our platform sponsor, can help in a big way. FreshBooks is the amazingly simple invoicing solution perfectly suited for creative professionals who need to focus on their work and not their paperwork. Creating and sending invoices, tracking your time, and managing your expenses will become the easiest part of your day, and you'll probably end up wondering why you didn't start sooner. If you have questions, help is free, forever. And you can always count on FreshBooks' award-winning support rock stars to go above and beyond whatever you need, anytime. And I tested them myself. They answered my call on the first ring, and I had my issue resolved within minutes. It was beautiful. To try FreshBooks free for 30 days, just go to freshbooks.com/architect and enter EntreArchitect in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
I think about big data, and I try to be more critical about the term, but in general, the notion that you can have a lot of data about in architecture about things and about both pre-design and then in terms of post-occupancy can have incredible effects. One effect is that it gives this transparency into the entire system. So now you can as a designer, you can actually put numbers behind the, maybe not allegations, but the kind of the promises that you're making about the work that you do, whether it's that it's sustainable, whether that it has positive effects on the users. There's a lot of consultancies right now that are built around understanding workplaces and things like that. But if we actually create creatively these understand that data, I think it will impact the entire industry. In many ways, I think architects should be leading that front, because if not, you're going to find other companies that will, and they might not be as sensible to the needs of they might not have that same kind of background that architects do, right, in terms of an education. So I worry sometimes that other companies might just not understand how to use that data appropriately. For instance, big consulting firms, right, like Accenture, McKinsey, these companies are already moving into the domain of architects, whether it's that they're starting to do urban planning projects, consultation on what it means to be a smart city, things of that nature, that if architects get left out of the discussion, these companies have such brand value behind them in terms of solving business solutions, they could easily take over the market for certain size projects. So if, in general, architects, the ability of all these platforms, one of the key characteristics is that they democratize access, meaning that architects aren't just privy to that data, other people are, and it becomes a battle of who can communicate the value of that data to an end customer and end client better, and who can tie that to their business needs. So in many ways, potentially what happens is that architects will start to become better, hopefully, at understanding clients and really start backing that up with evidence in such a way that they can gain more trust and, in effect, more power and leverage over the long term.
George, what are some ways, because our audience is mostly small firm architects, what are some ways that small firms can use some of these new technologies to sort of make their value as architects a little more appealing?
For smaller firms, I think it's a matter of looking at what's out there and seeing how can it communicate, how different technologies can help communicate their value to an end client better, or help maybe remove some of the friction in communication. I mean, we've actually, I mean, in terms of VR at least, we get customers that are small firms that use it because their clients don't understand plans and don't understand elevations and have a hard time understanding renderings. And for a small office, you might not be able to put the kind of monetary resources behind high res, super realistic rendering that can maybe get to that same level of communication. So, I think that's one instance. Maybe for big data, it's more about, or at least using other forms of information to give weight to your value. Maybe it's about innovating the way that you communicate with the client. So, for instance, Pinterest has become a great platform for collecting inspirational images, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of firms out there that are starting to use Pinterest as a way to communicate with their client, right? Let the client kind of give their input and feedback through a collection of images and atmosphere that they can then leverage in the design process. Things like that, I think, are very helpful. There's new technologies in 3D scanning, which once the price point becomes, and I think the price point is actually getting there, a small firm might be able to start to do 3D scanning in an interior space and walk the client through, like, this is what this is what it currently looks like, this is what it can become, in a way that's actually feasible from a monetary perspective, where you can just kind of stitch together these different tools to enhance your workflow between a client. And I think ultimately no matter what type of client you might have, these things are not are fundamentally in service about improving the customer experience, which for a small firm is really probably one of the things that has to be top of mind, right? I mean, from my understanding, most small firms also get most of their client work as repeat.
Right.
So the more you can improve that customer experience, the more you can leverage these tools that are out there, like MailChimp, newsletters, keep your customer engaged, tell this to your brand and to your mission. I think the better, the more leads you might be able to generate from that.
I would also expect that the tools that are being developed that are very expensive now and that are being used at the very high level at the large firms and the very at an enterprise level will, as they develop, become smaller and less expensive, and technologies that will spin off of those larger technologies will come down, and they'll become part of our process in the future, and probably the very near future. I mean, if you look at just the iPhone as a tool, and how that is becoming integrated in the process of what we do on a daily basis in so many different ways, not only a communication tool, but a production tool. And when you're measuring a space, very often the iPhone is part of that process. The apps that are being developed for the iPhone every day make our jobs as architects easier and easier. I'd say BIM too is another technology that at one time was untouchable for small firms, and as it developed and as it grew, it became more affordable and more specifically intended for the work that we do. And now most firms are shifting from CAD-based firms to BIM-based firms. Do you see that happening with the technology that you're involved with? That eventually the technology that you're working with at Iris will eventually trickle down to technologies and devices that will be ubiquitous in the profession?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think, especially with these headsets, HoloLens announced recently that their dev kit is now going to cost $3,000, which is a hefty price, which also kind of is an indicator that they're not ready for mass rollout until 2 years from now. Because if you look at Google Glass, when they came out, their price point was around $1,800, and we still have yet to see the second version of it released. So it will take time. Those type of technologies will take time, but I think technologies that are starting to leverage more mobile phones, again, like the Oculus. I mean, the price point of 350, that's about the price of a gaming console, which many people have in their homes.
Yeah, that's the cost of an iPad.
That's the cost of an iPad. So it's already getting there, and I think the motivation of a large consumer brand pushing that out there is that they get as much adoption as possible. So it's I think as long as technology stay within a certain price range of 300 and below 1,000, it's not beyond the reach of a small architecture practice to be able to put that as an expense.
What's the name of that technology, that device that you just talked about?
The Oculus Rift.
The Oculus, yeah. So that we talked about that before. Is that the piece that, is that something that you wear?
Yeah, that's something that you wear, and I think the one of the things we always get about having to wear something on your face is always just the kind of social, the norm, I guess, or the how weird it might feel to have to wear this thing inside of a client presentation or client meeting. But I think once people actually get into the experience, the actual how they look while they're wearing it really becomes much of a non-issue, because I think at that point everyone's they start to realize, well, we're actually doing this for the same goal. And over time, the form factor will get better, and it won't look as kind of bulky, and that will get ironed out. But the value is what ultimately people are going for.
Right. The first cell phones were these big bricks.
Right.
Right. And they evolved into the most beautiful device ever, the iPhone. And so I'm sure that the Oculus will do the same. And at a price point that's less than $500. How does that tie into what technology, what software is that device using? Is that its own software, or are you tying into BIM models, or what?
Yeah, so it ties. At least for our solution, it's basically whatever software you have. You just take the file, you drag and drop it into our application, and we do all the heavy lifting to put it into into the Oculus. But the Oculus itself has its own drivers, and it kind of it has its own marketplace. So you could even use it for things like watching movies and other things like that are not necessarily related to the work of the office. So if you're a small firm and you bought one, you could actually probably be using this for yourself from an entertainment perspective. So it wouldn't, there's a kind of double value there.
Right, and you could write it off.
And you could write it off. So it's not too bad.
It's a business expense.
And it really is. We're big firm believers in enterprise for these technologies, but when the consumer applications are actually, they can be really interesting and really impactful. I think sports is one where it's just going to be insane. Being able to be in the stadium with your friends remotely and watch a basketball game from any seat in the house, but paid less than you would if you're watching it live. That's possible. That is completely possible. And actually be able to have conversations with your friends over that is very, very possible within the next couple of years. So, you can imagine a FIFA, like a soccer match that has a huge crowd. If Oculus started and their partner started to move into that territory, it would be kind of a no-brainer. And even, but for, let's say, things like film, it's just kind of a completely unexplored territory. Nobody yet knows how to tell a story in VR, much less, let's say, like a cinematic, like a blockbuster hit. It's just kind of like no one has yet even invented what it means to cut a scene from one to another when you're completely immersed. So it's just an amazing kind of territory for all other aspects besides what we're in, which is kind of dealing with architects and engineers and construction folks.
That technology is here today. It's you can buy it and start using it, and it's not just a novelty. It's certainly a design tool and something that can be used to improve the architecture that you're creating.
Yeah, if let's say if I were back and I had started a small practice, which would probably be the way. That's how everyone starts. I think the interesting things that I would think about probably when trying to leverage technology is again, like, what are those things that would help improve the way I communicate my value to an end customer? We have an exercise here that we like to do where we map out what's called the customer journey, right, or the user journey, and that's basically you can probably look this up online. There's a lot of written in terms of what's called user experience in designing for software, but you basically map out like what is the beginning to end process of a customer when they relate with, once they meet, once they find out about you, all the way to when they're working with you, and then beyond, right after they're working with you. I think this is a helpful practice that any small firm could leverage, because ultimately what you're trying to understand is empathize with your end user or your end client and understand, well, okay, what are all the touch points along the way in which I have to interface with them, and how do I facilitate those things? The more friction you start to remove from that process between your client and yourself, and I think the more of a chance you'll get that person will either hire you again or recommend you to someone else. And if they recommend you to someone else, or if, let's say, after you're done producing the project, figuring out the ways in which you can leverage their voice, their like, as they say, testimonial to help enhance your brand out there, is something that I see rarely. But I think it's those things that technology companies are understanding so well that can be leveraged, I think, even in a service-based industry like the one that architecture is in. And again, it's just the more you invest in improving the customer experience, maybe even beyond just the design of the projects. You could probably not. Maybe you as a firm, you might not consider yourself the edgiest firm or doing the most crazy design work. But if you just focus on customer experience, you might have your success will definitely come from that.
Yeah, that's where the profit is. That without a doubt is managing the experience. Is if we shifted our mindset from a design focused firm where the art comes first, and
right,
and everything else just sort of is there because it has to be, because you're in business and you need to get paid. And we shifted it from that to and I say profit then art, profit focused. And in order to be profitable, you put in all these systems and you do that exercise that you just described, where what is the entire experience? And really, if we shifted even beyond profit to experience, if we focus, like you recommend, on the experience of our client from day one, from the day they are introduced to us as a brand in a Google search, all the way through that first meeting and those initial, design meetings, all the way through development and construction and bidding and construction and then beyond construction. And we're managing that experience for our clients throughout that process, leveraging the technologies that are available to us at each of those touch points. We can create this amazing experience for our clients, like what you're saying, George. It will be impossible for them to not talk about you as a firm and as a brand, because they'll have just experienced this process that was so easy and fun and smooth, and they ultimately ended up with an amazing design because you're an amazing artist, and you made a lot of money because you had these systems in place, but the overall experience was fluid, and that experience is what leads you to the next project and to more profit and more success, and so as a great suggestion that you had.
Yeah, and sometimes, small practices, I think probably when people hear what I just said, they might say, well, but I don't have resources. I don't have the time to be able to do those exercises myself. I'm just one or two people, and I don't have the bandwidth. I think we had talked a little bit about it in the previous podcast about the importance of just, the way that people, like the people that run small offices, many times can get in their own way and try to micromanage everything and try to do the entire thing, because again, it goes back to the whole thing about being the artistic side is somewhat all controlling, right? And that they don't realize that no, you actually need to hire other people Like if you get a project, use the income from that project to actually, and it sounds risky, but hire someone else to then do more work for you. And there's a good interview that Charlie Rose does with Damien Hirst, where I forgot what year it was in, but the interview, at one point, Damien Hirst talks about when he first did his first gallery, what he did with all his friends used the money from the show to buy clothes and buy brand new, things. He used that money to hire someone else to produce more artwork for him, right? And it's like you need to set up those processes for yourself and find people that you can trust to carry on the work, so that you can do what you need to do, which is like bring in more customers, focus on these processes, do higher order level things. And I think that is something that if maybe there was more of a community around that, where I don't know if this is something that even the AIA can help with, but if there was just more of a community around that, about those best practices, about those, how do we think about this process, maybe even there's just so much work to be done in that area that I think if more people got together and solved those issues, it would be a huge help for the entire industry.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that because I'm building that right now.
Oh,
Entrepreneur Architect is that platform, and we're in the process of rebuilding it to be even more of what you just described.
That's perfect.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Just so the listeners know, I had no idea.
Yeah, that was a softball that George didn't even realize he pitched me. Yeah, thanks. So this is a great conversation. I always love speaking with you, George, because it's always interesting to hear about the big technologies that are happening and what the big companies are doing, and then sort of bring it down to our level and say, okay, well, how do we benefit from that? And so it's great to hear that, and it's interesting how it's common theme that we should be focusing on our businesses and our systems and using these technologies to help us do that. Is so important. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share with us?
No, I mean, I guess, one interesting side effect about starting to think about your own processes is that there's even opportunity in that. So it's not uncommon for technology companies that are developing one product to build their own internal tools that then they start to realize, wait a minute, well, if we're using these tools internally, then other people will want to use these tools. And then you can actually create a business, and they just drop what they were actually focusing on in the first place and focus on that. I think Asana is one of those companies where they kind of built out their own tool. Slack is another company that's it's catching like wildfire for intercommunication within teams. But Slack was a byproduct of a completely different business. They just built it out internally, and they realized that was a much better product to be focusing on. So I would find it very interesting if there were architects out there that reinvested some of the money that they bring in, and as they're focusing on these kind of like, how do we make the bidding process faster? How can once you start to look at the problems that you're facing as a small owner, and you break them up into small parts, you actually might be able to develop software around those things that you can then help other people in the community with. And there's so much inefficiencies that are still there that can be figured out that would help everyone.
That's a great way to wrap things up, and it's probably a great lead to the next conversation that we should have, because I would love to have that conversation as well, about how we can sort of leverage the processes that we develop for our own firms into software, and how do we end up potentially moving that software to market and create a whole nother revenue stream for small firms. That'd be a great conversation. George, it's always inspiring and exciting to talk to you, to sort of get a behind the scenes on what's happening and what's coming down the road. So thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing your knowledge here on the Entrepreneur Architect Podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. I look forward to the next one.
If you like this episode and you want to leave me a review, and I would love for you to do that, EntreArchitect.com/iTunes will get you there. Or if you find yourself in iTunes looking around, just search for Entrepreneur Architect and you'll find us. But even more important than that, share this episode. It's easy. Just click a link, EntreArchitect.com/episode 94. Just email it right now, EntreArchitect.com/episode 94. That is the best way to get the word out about what we're doing. And I do appreciate every single one of you sharing. I noticed last week a bunch of people sharing it on Twitter. I've seen it on Facebook. I encourage you to do that again this week, EntreArchitect.com/episode 94. And let's get the word out. Complete show notes and a download link will be available on EntreArchitect.com/94. And don't forget to send me your audio file. Share what you know. Here's the question one more time. What is the one thing that you did this year to improve your business, your leadership, or your life? Record your answer and send it to me at support@EntreArchitect.com. I appreciate you for listening and for all the support and encouragement I receive from the EntreArchitect community. Now it's your turn. Please send me your thoughts and share what you know. My name is Mark R. LePage, and I am an entrepreneur architect, and I want you to share what you know.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark Arlepage, founder of EntreArchitect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand Podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.